Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Lava Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Dava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pavrikacharya Satara Sada Shishimaz Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Siko Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai. Jai Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shai Makunda Radha Kunda Giri Gaurana ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mayapur Navadip Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Namo. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 51, and this is verse number 60. Yunjananam abhaktanam pranayama dibirmana akshina vasanam rajan drishyate punar utitam yunjananam abhaktanam pranayama dibirmana akshina vasanam rajan drishyate punar utitam yunjananam abhaktanam pranayama dibirmana akshina vasanam rajan drishyate punar utitam. Anayana birmana Jinam vasanam rajan Yate bunarutitam Yananam bhaktanam Anayana birmana Drishyate punarutitam Yunjananam abhaktanam pranayamadi birmana akshina vasanam rajan drishyate punarutitam yunjananam, who are engaging themselves, abhaktanam, of non-devotees, pranayama, with pranayam, yogic breath control, adibihi, and other practices, manaha, the minds, akshina, not eliminated, vasanam, the last traces of whose material desire, rajan, O King Muchakunda, drishyate, is seen, punaha, Again, utitam, waking, to thoughts of sense gratification. Translation by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. The minds of non-devotees who engage in such practices as pranayama are not fully cleansed of material desires. Thus, O king, material desires are again seen to arise in their minds. Please repeat. The minds of non-devotees who engage in such practices as pranayama are not fully cleansed of material desires. Thus, O king, material desires are again seen to arise in their minds. There's no purport by Srila Prabhupada's disciples. However, there are 3 short commentaries by the acharyas. First, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, other worshippers, however, are attracted to material enjoyment. That is illustrated in this verse. Of those who are not devotees, that is, yogis and jnanis, by practice of pranayama, sama, dhamma, etc., attraction to material enjoyment, utitam, again is seen. Jiva Goswami writes, those who engage in other practices to give up desires will deviate. Those who have attained samadhi, yunjananam, do not rid their minds of desire for enjoying objects, akshina vasanam, since they lack bhakti, which creates steadiness in the mind. And Sanatana Goswami writes, slightly longer, one should not say that by Astanga Yoga, with mind in samadhi, the mind will not be agitated by benedictions. Nice point here. Not just, sinful activities, but there may be benedictions, because Muchukunda was offered benedictions by the Lord. One should not say that by Astanga Yoga, the mind in samadhi, the mind will not be agitated by benedictions. The mind of persons devoid of bhakti, engaged in yoga, develop desires. Although they give up objects because of lack of bhakti, the impressions of objects does not decrease. O king, you can understand this. Or, in this birth as a king, by protecting the devatas as part of a king's duty, and even after sleeping a long time, bhakti did not arise. In another birth, you will attain bhakti. However, he actually had bhakti. That is explained in verse 14. Otherwise, the Lord would not show such mercy to him. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Ganan Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitan Jnana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swabadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bastai Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitanamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharni Nirvasesa Shunyavadi Prashacha Desharni Panchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This is a really important topic. Srila Prabhupada would speak about this in many ways and cite numbers of verses about the importance of bhakti as opposed to the success of bhakti, the effectiveness of bhakti, as opposed to the dry methods of the non-devotees, those yogis and empiricists, logicians, who seek to find the highest understanding through various means, but not bhakti. Interesting. Sanatana Goswami, he has a number of insights, but it's interesting how he speaks here. He says to the king, "Oh, king, you can understand this," the point he's making, that persons who are devoid of bhakti lack the impressions for enjoyment still exist. We all have these impressions, samskars. These samskars, these impressions for enjoying material life, because we've been here for a very, very long time. We even can remember a lot of these impressions. Those of us who joined the movement after we were young adults, we still remember songs from 50 or 60 years ago. We may even remember the words enough to know what they said. So the point is that these impressions, they last. And so he's saying to the king, you understand this. But then he makes this statement saying, actually, because you were a king, you were really engaged in a lot of duties which were such strong samskars that you can't have bhakti arise in this life. But then Sanatana Goswami, that's a general rule. That's a general rule. There may be such strong samskars in a person's life that they can't take up bhakti in this life, or very seriously. But that means that maybe they hear the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra in the next life, or they come a few times to the feast, or they come all the time to the feast, and they take Sunday feast, and they take prasadam, and they become purified, and they hear, and even though they don't appear to become bhaktas, they're on the way. But for the king here, he's saying, Sanatana Goswami says, let's go back to verse 14. It's not just verse 14, but verse 14 and several verses afterwards, in which it's stated. It begins with this statement in verse 14. Shukadeva Goswami said, Muchukunda was the name of this great personality who was born in the Ikshvaku dynasty as the son of Mandata. He was devoted to Brahminical culture and always true to his vow in battle. And then the next subsequent verses, they show that actually Krishna understands that Muchukunda has developed complete devotional service, so that this idea that the samskars are affecting him doesn't apply to him. But it does apply in general to personalities, those of us in this material world. And so Prabhupada, he spent a lot of time trying to make devotees understand, or anyone who would listen to understand, that the process of Krishna consciousness is the only process by which one can actually free the mind from these previous samskaras. That the other processes, they may drive one to become austere and simple and give up bad habits in this world. But it's not just giving up bad habits of this world to kind of come to what is described to be the outer room of the spiritual world. That is the Brahma Jyoti, somehow or other becoming happy in a negative way. Because I'm no longer beating my head with a hammer, I feel better. That's not real enjoyment. Prabhupada actually had something to say in some classes that he spoke, 2 classes in particular. Very short, very succinct. In a Nectar of Devotion class, this is the famous Nectar of Devotion series in 1972 in Vrindavan. He said, Bhaja Vasudev, worship Vasudev. There is a verse like that as by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Vasudev, Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can get released from all kinds of material tribulations. Such kind of immunization is not possible by practicing yoga, tapasya, Gyan. This statement is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because by practicing these other practices, there's no positive taste, and the heart gets hard because one is forcing oneself to become freed from these bad habits. Whereas by bhakti, as Prabhupada would speak so many times, he would say that one is actually tasting a higher taste, and therefore, because of this higher taste, one can give up that lower taste. And then Prabhupada speaking in a in a Chaitanya Charitamrita class in New York in 1976, the Brahman is also parampadam. It is not material. It is spiritual world. But because they have no shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, they fall down again at the shelter of Maya. Prabhupada also gave the example. Prabhupada followed a lot of the things happening in the world at the time when he was here with us. And one of the things happening at the time was the space race, where the United States and the Soviet Union were trying to land a man on the moon, and whether they did or they didn't is not the topic of this class. But Prabhupada would talk about he had enough interest, I assume, that he knew a little bit about what was going on, so that he at one time in one lecture said that they may go very fast, 18,000 miles an hour, which is the speed of what they have to get into orbit around the Earth. He says they may go very fast, but unless they can take shelter of a planet, a place, they have to come back here to Earth. And then he said, so the yogis, they may go very high, but they again have to come back down here because they're just flying up there somewhere in the Brahman, and they have no shelter. And then Prabhupada often quoted this verse, which is a famous verse that we've heard millions of times. Not millions of times, but a lot of times. Yen ye ravindaksha vimuktimaninas tvayasta bavad avashuddha buddhya arura krichena param padam patada padantyado najuta yujmad angraya. This is the verse where it says avashuddha buddhya, because they have impure intelligence, these Mayavadis. They have no standing in the parampadam, in the spiritual world, because they're kind of like the astronauts orbiting the Earth. They can't stay there forever. They have to go someplace where they can have a shelter. You can't take shelter inside of a spaceship forever. It's a temporary. So they have to come back down here because they have no place else to go. And if the moon was, as they said, what it is, I mean, they can't go there either. So the point being that one has to find a place to repose one's faith and repose one's love. So the verse here is translated, and there's a long preamble that Prabhupada added. Someone may say that aside from devotees who always seek shelter at the Lord's lotus feet, there are those who are not devotees, but who have accepted different processes for attaining salvation. What happens to them? In answer to this question, Lord Rama and the other demigods said, this is the prayers to Krishna in the womb of Devaki before he appears. O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. And then Prabhupada writes in his purport, aside from devotees, there are many others, non-devotees, known as karmis, jnanis, or yogis, philanthropists, altruists, politicians, impersonalists, and voidists. That's a real smorgasbord of ists here. Now, of all those personalities, only the jnanis, yogis, and perhaps voidists and impersonalists, if they have some sort of practice, can be called anything sort of transcendentalists. The karmis are simply trying to play around with the material energy to enjoy. You know, they want to go to the heavenly planets. They want to have a long life. They want to, you know, it's sort of like what a lot of modern religions, they envision heaven to be their family in a wonderful place where they can have everything they have in this world without the suffering. That's basically, you don't hear about the demigods having to get root canals. They're not suffering like that. They have everything we have multiplied without the suffering. That's what people, generally speak, religion is going to be. I'll go to a place where I'll live, quote, forever, and do what I do here, basically, but I won't suffer. Nice. But it doesn't last. And it's not transcendental. So the yogis and the jnanis, they're actually trying to reach something higher. The altruists, the philanthropists, the politicians, well, what are they just trying to, put a Band-Aid on the pains of this material world? Some commission to study this, some, scientific advancement to do this, cure this disease, but then a new one comes. So they can't really do anything. And then there are many varieties of non-devotees who have their respective ways of liberation, but simply because they do not know the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, although they falsely think they have become liberated and elevated to the highest position, they fall down. And then Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita, text number 9, chapter 9, text 3, Ashraddha dana purusha dharma yasya parantapa aprapyamam nivartante mrityam samsara vartmani. Those who are not faithful in the path of devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of the foes, but return to birth and death in the material world. And Prabhupada says it doesn't matter whether one is a karmi, jnani, yogi, philanthropist, politician, or whatever. If one has no love for the lotus feet of the Lord, one falls down. That is the verdict given by Lord Brahma in this verse. We can also even turn to the Brahma Samhita, where verse number 34. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord. Only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. They can't even get close. This commentary of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is always very dense. But there are a few lines here I just want to repeat. The attainment of the lotus feet of Govinda consists in the realization of unalloyed devotion. Shuddha Bhakti. That's how we attain the Lord's lotus feet. The Kaivalya, realization of non-alternative state, is attained by Ashtanga yogis by practicing trance for thousands of millions of years, and the state of merging into the non-differentiated impersonality of Godhead beyond the range of limitation by the non-dualists after a similar period passed in distinguishing between the spiritual and non-spiritual and eliminating things of this limited sphere one after another by the formula, not this, not that. And here he says, are simply the outskirts of the lotus feet of Krishna and are not the lotus feet themselves. So they go through a lot of work to get to simply a state which is negation of suffering, and not actually rising to the place of actual happiness. If the absence of misery be called a bit of pleasure, then also that bit is very small and of no consequence. It is not sufficient to destroy the condition of materiality, but the real gain to the jiva is his eternal existence in his self-realized state. So these are strong statements, and they're about people who engage in really difficult austerities. They aren't really living normal lives like people in the world today are. They have to do things that are really difficult. And they can't really attain the state of pure devotion or Krishna's lotus feet, the shelter. So how does devotional service, which we call sometimes easy, really work? I mean, it doesn't seem like something that's not as difficult as all this can give you something better. Well, it lies in the word easy, because easy can also mean that it's simple. It is very simple. Simply chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shuddhanam, pure nam. That's the hard part, is to get to the pure nam. That's where we have to actually realize that Krishna consciousness is not rules and regulations. We have some rules and regulations, the 4 regulated principles. And these 4 regulated principles, they're not really that difficult in the sense that these regulated principles are meant to take us away from the tamasic and rajarsic life that people live in the modern world to a platform of sattvic or goodness. But in and of themselves, these regulated principles, that's not really Krishna consciousness. It's sort of the foundation of the building. And sometimes devotees, they become rooted in ritualistic activities and following principles. But if there's no taste, we can't really go on in Krishna consciousness. So how to get taste? Getting taste means that we have to find activities in Krishna consciousness that we relish, that we bring us happiness, and they're in connection with Krishna. And there's lots of different things to be done. It begins with Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Vishnu Smaranam. But we can be doing deity worship, we can be making prayers, we can be offering everything to the Lord. There's Prahlad Maharaj, speaks about this in the 7th canto. But we have to find a taste. Otherwise, it becomes dry. And then, because it's dry, we are in the same problem. We have the same problems that the Mayavadis have. But we aren't even practicing hard austerities to keep ourselves away from things. We're just a click away from Maya on the internet, or we can flip on the TV. We're not living in a cave with no connection. We're well connected to everything. In this connection, I got an interesting article that was sent to me by a friend who's a kind of devotee. He's a devotee for a while until he gets tired of it, because he doesn't have a higher taste. He follows the principles, but he's a Mayavadi basically. Anyway, so he sent me this article written by a young woman who had joined the Krishna consciousness movement and left recently. It was like she joined before the pandemic and left 6 years later. So like just this last year. And she describes herself, it's a nice article in some ways. And she's very well learned too. She quotes from, Bhatcha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Uttara Basta Vegam. She it's obvious she's read Prabhupada's books and everything. And she talks about how she was traveling abroad in another country in search of what she didn't even know. But she was addicted to drugs, was having lots of illicit sex, and was just burned to a crisp and actually living a life that was very dangerous. And she came upon the Sunday Love Feast in one city. And when she went there, she was just completely enamored, and wow, the higher taste came. And she joined the movement. But somehow or other, she ended up at a temple, and I won't say where she got in an environment where all it was rules and regulations, and as Pure Krishna Maharaj says, you can't do a don't. And she just writes about how she was shamed and put down for this and that, and how it was all vacha vegam, manasa krota vegam, jiva vegam, udara pasta vegam, but there was no, vishaya vinivartante niraharsha dehinam rajam rosapasya harm jistva navartate. There was no higher taste. And she left. She left so she could eat vegan donuts. And, I said to my friend, I said, well, it sounds like a pretty good intervention. She was addicted to drugs, having illicit sex, and now she's just wants to go eat vegan donuts and hang out with vegans and not be a devotee. But it's because, she said, I just wanted to go and taste things outside. They kept saying, you can't eat non-devotee food. And if you do, you'll go to hell. And it was all this kind of stuff. It was all don't. And I was thinking how unfortunate it was that she didn't meet somebody who said, let's hear Krishna Katha. Let's go to Kirtan. And, you went and got a vegan donut. Come on. That's not the issue. The issue is how to get a higher taste in Krishna consciousness. And we should be kind to each other, not find fault in each other. I just thought it was very sad that somehow or other this environment she ended up in emphasized all the stuff that people don't like to hear. I mean, no one likes to hear that you have to change your lifestyle, especially if someone's a big meat eater and drinker or something like that. But the fact is that these things we do, they just establish us in a platform of living a healthy life. But if we don't get a higher taste, we want to hear Krishna Katha. We want to hear about the pastimes of Krishna. We want to be with our Gurudev or our advanced devotee, because when they chant japa or when they chant kirtan, it's ecstatic. And the deities are ecstatic. Or I like my service. When I'm distributing books or I'm on Harinam, I feel that I'm doing something that's serving Prabhupada. And it has real taste. I get a taste. Not this, ho-hum. You chant 16 rounds, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. That we don't want to be on that platform. That platform doesn't work. The platform that works is getting a higher taste. And that's actually what Prabhupada emphasized so many times, that we have to have a higher taste. And of course, this verse, Vishaya vinivartante, niraharsha dehina, rasa varjam raso pyasya, param drishva navartate, that the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements, by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. It's not like when I first joined the movement, and I would be distributing books in different parking lots and places, and people had heard the Hare Krishna movement, and they'd say, don't you miss eating meat? I was thinking, how would I miss doing that? We have prasadam, so much better than what your flesh burger. It's ecstatically wonderful. It's offered to Krishna. So yes, we didn't have that. In one area is one area where most devotees have no trouble having a higher taste, because prasadam is the higher taste. But we have to ultimately have a higher taste for. Our taste in entertainment, our taste in relaxation has to come to the mood of sattvic. I mean, recently we were visiting our daughter and son-in-law and our granddaughter, and his side of the family. They're nice people, but they're not devotees. And just the atmosphere of hanging out with them a few hours here and there was like, it's tamasic or rajasic. Talking about football games or talking about political stuff, talking of, people, have a can of some brew in their hand and, are just kind of hanging out in the material world. Doesn't make it. It's really dry. And we can see that. So, but if we don't have a higher taste, hanging out in the material world and talking about politics and, did you see the overtime, NBA game yesterday? I mean, that's, something that people get something out of. It was an exciting last-second shot. My God. Well, we want to talk about Krishna dancing on Kaliya's heads. Talk about, good sportsman footwork, That's great. And it lasts forever. This guy who did that, he made that shot, he's 22 now, and when he's 52, he's going to have arthritis in his knees. So it doesn't last. Therefore, param drishtavan avartate. Let's get a higher taste. Let's help each other get a higher taste. Let's chant together and serve the deities together and take prasadam together and enjoy Krishna consciousness. It's enjoying because Krishna is enjoying. He's happy to see us become pure devotees. And please, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's given us something. Let's take advantage of it. So this is an important topic. Prabhupada wanted us to get the higher taste and not to be hung up on practices. The practices are there. They're important. But that's not the goal. The goal is to become a lover of Krishna. And that's what's important. And so that's what we need to cultivate. So I'll stop there. Are there any questions? Maharaj, anything? Okay. Well, yes, Machi. But you are. Yes. Yeah, there's the point. People have to realize this on their own. The point being here is that eating grains cooked by non-devotees or eating in a restaurant or something like that. In the beginning, that can't be shoved down someone's throat. We should be giving them some nectar so that, as you say, they realize it themselves. Not don't do, but rather take prasad, come to kirtan. And then when they go to the shop and they have a donut or something, they go, I can see the difference. And then they're convinced. A man who's convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. People have to get it themselves. Yeah, and make the things that they want. You want great pizza? Make it here and offer to the deities. Yeah. Otherwise, all you're going to get is a lot of onion and garlic and the guy smoking a cigarette while he's making the pizza. So, who needs that? Smoked pizza. Actually, no more. That was when I was growing up, they'd be smoking a cigarette. Not anymore. No one smokes cigarettes anymore. They can't. It's against the law in these places. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvanda Mara Buddha Sundaranga Kandar Agong Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakale Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Namaham Vishnu Vataya Krishna Prastaya Bhutalaya Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacha Nirvisesha Shunyavare Vasyachagare Sacharane Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sagare Gaurabhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sagare Gaurabhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Radha Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Goloka Radha Goloka Radha. Jaya Radha Goloka Radha Goloka Radha. Jaya Radha. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe. Jaya Radhe, 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 Jaya Radhe. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvatikacharya. His divine grace.
Hare. Bhavamahadavagi Nirvapanam Eyakairavya Chandrika Vitaranam Vijavadu Jivanam Anandam Vardhanarnam Pradam Pranamita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva. Thank you for nice dressing. Etadrishita Vakriba Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Suhishuna Amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye Mama janmani janmani ishvare bhavatad bhaktir ahoitaki twai Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam buddha Kripayata vapada pankaja stita duli sajashim vachintaya Nayanam garashru daraya varanam gad gadurudaya gira Pulakarnishitam vapukada tavanamagrahane bhavishyati Yugayatam nimishena chakshusha pravashayatam Shunayatam jagat sarvam govindam virahename Ashlishyavapadaratam panastumam Adarshanam marmahata karotuva Yatatata viditatulam pato mat prananatastu saivanapara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh, my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service.